Black CEO denied first-class seat 12 minutes later. He grounds the entire airline. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. Move to economy now. Her voice sliced through the cabin like a blade of cold air. Row 2A went still. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. The flight attendant Nicole Harris, early 30s, crisp uniform, fury disguised as authority, stood pointing at a black man in a navy suit. Her fingers shook, not from fear, but conviction. The kind that comes from thinking she's untouchable. He looked up slowly, calm, composed, like a man measuring the cost of silence. Is there a problem? Yes, she snapped. That seat isn't for you. The passengers around them shifted uneasily. Someone in row 3 whispered, "What's happening?" Another murmured, "He's in the wrong class." Nicole leaned closer, her tone sharpened by entitlement. "You heard me. Move to economy, sir, before I call security." The man's name was Marcus Carter. To the rest of the cabin, he was just another traveler in a plain suit. No entourage, no flash. But in 12 minutes, everyone on that plane would know exactly who he was. He blinked once, slow, deliberate, then said softly, "You should be careful who you talk to like that." Nicole scoffed. "I'm careful. That's why I still have a job. It is not life to buy breader." Their same Talibol Desarian in plaques. Behind her, a younger attendant, Brian, maybe mid-20s, grinned. "Come on, man, don't make this harder than it needs to be." Marcus didn't answer. He just sat there, thumb resting on the edge of his boarding pass, calm against chaos. The intercom hummed faintly. Overhead lights buzzed. The air felt tighter, heavier. Nicole crossed her arms, waiting for defiance. She didn't know this moment was already being logged, word for word, tone for tone, on a silent phone in Marcus's pocket. He'd flown this route dozens of times, usually unnoticed. Tonight he'd chosen to travel quiet to see how his airline treated people who didn't look like money. And now, right on cue, the test had begun. "You need to move now, sir." "Why?" he asked. "Because this is first class. And you're not on the list." The words landed like a slap dressed as procedure. Passengers pretended not to watch, but their eyes betrayed them. Curiosity tangled with guilt. One woman clutched her handbag closer. A man in a blazer leaned to his wife. "This is going to delay the flight." Nicole reached for his ticket. Marcus held it tighter. Their hands brushed, brief and electric. "Let go," she demanded. "You're making a mistake." "No," she said coldly. "You are." A pause. Then the sound paper tearing clean down the middle. Gasps rippled through the cabin like turbulence. Marcus didn't move. Didn't raise his voice. He just stared at the shredded ticket in her hand, then met her eyes. "You just grounded this plane," he said quietly. Silence. Even the engines seemed to hold their breath. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus Carter. He leaned back in his seat, eyes steady on Nicole, voice calm but final. "You don't know it yet, but this flight isn't taking off until I say so." For 5 long seconds, no one moved. The torn ticket lay across Marcus Carter's lap like a verdict. Nicole stood over him, chest heaving, her authority cracking but not yet broken. From row 4, a man whispered, "She really just did that?" A woman clutched her pearls, as if the word first class needed guarding. The captain's voice came faintly through the intercom, routine updates about weather and takeoff clearance, oblivious to the storm brewing inside cabin air thick with judgment. Marcus leaned forward, calm, still intact. "Are you finished?" Nicole blinked, thrown by his tone. "You're being removed from this flight," she said, voice trembling beneath the weight of her own certainty. "Then call whoever you need," he replied. "I'll be right here." He placed the torn halves of the ticket neatly on the tray table, like evidence. That was when Brian, the younger attendant, stepped closer. "Sir, just cooperate. Don't make this a scene." Marcus glanced up. Slow. "You already made it one." The audience of passengers grew, phones raised discreetly, eyes pretending to look away but recording everything. Somewhere near row 5, the faint click of a camera app sounded like a gun cocking. Nicole turned sharply, voice rising. "Put your phones down. This is a private airline matter." Her command didn't land. It just hung there, powerless, as if even the air refused to obey her now. Marcus's phone vibrated once against his thigh. A message from Rachel, his executive assistant. "Board members online. Proceed when ready." He didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, he watched the crew fumble with a mix of arrogance and panic. An old dance he'd seen in boardrooms, banks, and now, apparently, airplanes. He remembered being 24, wearing his only suit to a job interview at a regional airline. The manager had looked him up and down, smiled thinly, and said, "We're looking for someone with a more polished image." That day, Marcus promised himself, one day, he'd own the image. Now, he did. Nicole crossed her arms again. "You're lucky we haven't called airport security." "Lucky?" Marcus repeated softly. "That's what you call this?" His voice didn't rise, but the power in it did. From the back, a teenage passenger spoke up. He didn't do anything wrong. Nicole spun around, startled. "Stay out of this. Is right in the soul weeksome in ready self-passes with that monovax." The teen's mother placed a hand on her son's arm but didn't tell him to stop. She just said, "He's right." The tide shifted, subtle, but real. Marcus glanced toward the cockpit. Calm, centered. He pressed one button on his phone. A quiet vibration confirmed the signal sent. Rachel's voice came softly through his earpiece, barely audible. "Understood. Activating internal review protocol." Nicole frowned, confused by the sudden composure on his face. "What did you just do?" He smiled slightly. "You'll see." A low chime sounded over the cabin speakers, a system notification, not from the pilot, but from corporate. A voice read over the intercom. "Attention crew. Flight 672 is under internal operations review. All staff are to remain on standby." Gasps rippled again. Nicole's posture froze. Brian's smirk vanished. Marcus leaned back, voice quiet but absolute. "You tore up my ticket. Now let's see who really gets grounded." The engines hummed lower, as if obeying. Somewhere, Justice was taxiing toward the runway. The captain's door cracked open. A man in uniform, Captain Daniel Pierce, mid-40s, square jaw, steady eyes, stepped into the aisle. He didn't know it yet, but he was walking straight into a public reckoning. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice clipped. Nicole straightened instantly, hiding her panic behind procedure. "Passenger in 2A refused reassignment. Possibly falsified ticket information." Daniel frowned. "Falsified?" "Yes, sir," she lied smoothly. "We confirmed the record was void." Marcus didn't even look up from his phone. "That's interesting," he said quietly, "because the record you just deleted is backed up on 3 servers and mirrored at corporate. One of the Grive, on Ruddy Gons." Daniel hesitated, glancing at the glowing light above internal review initiated, still blinking in silent accusation. "Who authorized that alert?" "Marcus, I did." For a moment, the cockpit felt miles away. The entire plane tilted toward him. Brian whispered. "He's bluffing," Nicole hissed. "Then make him stop bluffing." Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, this flight can't proceed if you're causing disruption." "And it can't proceed," Marcus replied evenly, "if your staff are under audit for discrimination." The word hit hard. Discrimination, clean, undeniable, recorded by every open phone in the cabin. A woman in row 5 raised her voice. "He's right, I watched her tear up his ticket." Her husband added, "We all saw it." The witnesses had spoken. Nicole's composure fractured. "Everyone calm down. You don't know the full story." Marcus looked up, eyes steady. "Neither did you when you judged me." Silence. Then a single clap from the teenager in row 7. One became 2. Then a wave of quiet approval swept the cabin. Daniel turned toward Nicole, voice low but trembling. "Did you actually tear up his boarding pass?" She didn't answer. The evidence lay in shreds on Marcus's tray table, undeniable as truth itself. Marcus spoke again, not to gloat but to end the charade. "Captain, I suggest you contact Horizon's operations board. Use code 942, they'll brief you." Daniel blinked, uncertain. He reached for the cabin phone anyway. His voice, once confident, now carried the sound of submission. Control, this is Flight 672. I'm requesting verification on a protocol notice initiated by a Mr. Marcus Carter. The reply came back within seconds. Crisp and authoritative. Captain Pierce, Protocol 942 confirmed. Maintain position. Await ground clearance suspension. The words drained the color from Nicole's face. That's impossible, she whispered. Marcus tilted his head slightly. You sure about that? Daniel exhaled slowly. Mr. Carter, sir, are you affiliated with Horizon Airlines? Marcus met his gaze. Affiliated? No. I own 25% of it. The sound that followed wasn't applause, it was realization. Every passenger knew they had just witnessed a shift in power that could end careers. Nicole stepped back, words tumbling out too fast. Sir, I didn't mean… Marcus interrupted, calm but lethal. You meant every word. That's why it matters. From the back of the plane, a young trainee attendant, Mia, spoke up softly. Captain, I scanned his ticket myself. It turned green. All eyes turned to her. Nicole's glare could have burned through metal. Mia didn't flinch. You told me to delete his name from the log. I recorded it, Brian whispered. Oh my God, under his breath. Daniel looked at Nicole, voice flat. Step aside. For the first time, Nicole obeyed. Marcus leaned back in his seat, hands folded. The hum of the engines steadied again, but now, everyone knew who set the tempo. This plane, he said quietly, isn't under review anymore. You are. The cabin stayed silent. Even gravity felt like it was listening. No one spoke. The sound of the engines softened, a mechanical heartbeat slowing down. Every passenger could feel it, the moment between order and consequence. Nicole's hands trembled as she backed away from Marcus's seat. The confidence she'd wrapped herself in had begun to peel like cheap paint under heat. Brian stood frozen beside the galley door, eyes darting between the captain and the man he had mocked minutes ago. Captain Daniel pressed one palm to the bulkhead, steadying himself. His training had never prepared him for this, not for the quiet authority of a man who could end his career with a single call. Mr. Carter, he said carefully. I didn't realize. Marcus looked up, his tone precise. That I didn't fit your image of a first-class passenger? Daniel swallowed. The words hung like gravity. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, Marcus continued. But I am here to hold people accountable. Rachel's voice came softly through his earpiece. Boardroom line secure, Marcus. Compliance team is live. They're listening, he replied quietly. Good. Let's make sure everyone learns something tonight. Nicole finally found her voice. Please, sir, I was just following procedure. Marcus turned slightly, his gaze calm but unyielding. Procedure doesn't include humiliation. Not in any company I own. A murmur spread across the cabin, hushed, electric. A woman in 3C whispered, He owns part of the airline? Her husband nodded slowly. A quarter of it, apparently. Mia, the young trainee, still stood near the service station. Her uniform looked too big for her frame, but her voice was clear. Captain, I have the recording of what happened. The timestamp, the deletion log, everything. Daniel took a breath that felt heavier than air. Send it to corporate immediately. Mia hesitated. It's already there, sir. Nicole's composure snapped. You little. Marcus raised a hand. Just one. The gesture stopped her cold. Don't finish that sentence, he said quietly. You've done enough damage. The cabin fell into a stillness so complete it almost hurt. Marcus turned toward the passengers, his tone steady, not for pity, not for rage, but for truth. You know what's dangerous about bias? He asked softly. It hides behind professionalism, behind policy, behind the word procedure, until it strips someone's dignity and calls it protocol. No one moved. The words weren't shouted, but they landed with the weight of thunder. Daniel looked down, ashamed. Sir, what are your instructions? Simple, Marcus said. Ground this flight until Horizon's internal board finishes their review. No one leaves. No one flies. Not until the truth is written down. A collective gasp rolled through the cabin. Nicole looked desperate now. You can't do that. You don't have authority to… Authority? Marcus cut her off. You called me a fraud in a company I helped build. You tore my ticket in half. And now you want to talk about authority? His voice didn't rise, but it filled the air. Smooth and absolute. He turned slightly toward the captain. Daniel, ground protocol is authorized. You'll receive confirmation from the board in 60 seconds. As if on cue, the intercom crackled. Captain Pierce, this is Horizon Command. Confirm ground order for Flight 672. Crew suspension under review. Comply immediately. Daniel exhaled, then nodded. Confirmed. Men? The cabin lights dimmed to amber. The engines began to throttle down. A low vibration ran through the floor as the plane rolled back to its gate. Nicole looked around helplessly, trapped in the very space she once controlled. Marcus leaned forward, his words low, almost kind. You said I didn't belong in first class. I think you just proved why I did. And for the first time since the confrontation began, the air in that cabin finally stopped moving, as if respect itself had demanded silence. The jet bridge reconnected with a hollow metallic thud. The lights inside the cabin flickered once, then steadied a signal that the outside world was now watching. Passengers shifted in their seats, whispering, phones half raised. The tension had turned from personal to public. Everyone knew something irreversible was happening. Nicole stood by the galley, her breathing sharp and uneven. The word grounded still echoed in her mind, heavy as judgment. Brian leaned close and whispered, we can fix this. Just delete everything. But Mia's voice cut through, quiet yet piercing. You can't delete the truth. She stepped into the aisle, holding her phone in both hands like evidence. Her face was pale, but her spine was straight. Captain, compliance just requested my recording. Daniel nodded, subdued now. Send it through the encrypted channel. Mia tapped her screen. The playback began not through the intercom, not aloud, but transmitted directly to the board's live channel. Still the cabin could hear faint echoes. Nicole's voice, mocking, certain. Not in those jeans, honey. You don't belong here. Then Brian's laugh, careless and cruel. Betty printed that ticket at home, and the sound that sealed it, the paper tearing in two. The plane went silent. Every passenger listened like they were hearing a confession. Nicole's face drained of color. That was taken out of context, she blurted. Marcus looked at her calmly. Context doesn't make contempt disappear. Rachel's voice came through his earpiece again. Marcus, Horizon's board is requesting your statement. You can go live from the cockpit. Not yet, he said quietly. They need to see what accountability looks like first. He rose from his seat for the first time. The movement was unhurried, deliberate, like a man used to commanding rooms much larger than this one. He adjusted his suit jacket, stepped into the aisle, and faced the crew. You didn't just question a passenger, he said. You questioned a person's right to belong in a space they already paid for. And that's what prejudice does. It disguises itself as policy until someone shines a light on it. Nicole's eyes flicked toward the door, but there was nowhere left to go. Brian stared at the floor, whispering to himself. Mia kept her gaze steady, caught between fear and relief. From row 3, a man spoke up, his voice low, but clear. Sir, I've worked in customer service 20 years. What you just said, that's the whole system. A woman beside him nodded. We see it every day. Different faces, same tone. Marcus met their eyes, grateful but firm. Then maybe today it stops here. Vine! Sigram did Travit. He turned to the captain. Daniel, please open the intercom. The captain hesitated, then nodded. The soft click of the system echoed like a gavel. Marcus spoke, not just to the plane, but to every microphone, every recording device pointed his way. This flight will remain grounded until Horizon confirms disciplinary review for the staff involved. Every passenger on board will receive a written statement of apology within the hour. Because silence is how bias survives, and we're done being silent. Applause rose hesitant at first, then swelling. Not because people love drama, but because they recognized dignity when it stood right in front of them. Nicole sank into an empty seat, staring at the floor. Brian pressed his palms to his face, muttering, I'm done. I'm done. Mia exhaled, eyes shining, relief washing over fear. Rachel's voice returned, proud, measured. Board acknowledges your statement, Marcus. Protocol completed. You're cleared to disembark or continue as you wish. He looked around the cabin, the faces, the silence, the shared realization that something larger than one argument had just unfolded. We'll finish what we started, he said quietly. But from now on, Horizon doesn't fly on autopilot, it flies on accountability. And with that, Marcus Carter turned toward the front of the cabin, while the passengers behind him sat taller as if dignity itself had just learned how to breathe again. By now, the cabin was no longer just a space for travel, it was a courtroom with wings. Every eye had chosen a side, and for the first time, the side of truth was winning. Nicole sat slumped in a passenger seat, stripped of her posture, her badge turned backward to hide her name. Her lipstick had faded, her uniform suddenly felt like a costume. She looked small the way power always does when the mask falls off. Brian stood near the galley, head down, whispering to no one. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Mia sat quietly in jump seat position, hands folded, tears glinting at the edges of her resolve. She'd done the right thing, but courage always comes with shaking hands. Marcus remained standing in the aisle, phone in hand. His reflection shimmered faintly in the oval window. Calm, centered, unmovable. "Rachel," he said softly, "confirm crew suspension orders." "Already done," her voice replied through the earpiece. "They're locked out of all Horizon systems." Captain Daniel exhaled slowly. "Mr. Carter, we'll need to file a full report. May I ask what you intend to do next?" Marcus turned, eyes steady. "Make sure this never happens again. And have C high, in have SETI and sex is so, in the rezone." The captain nodded, silent. There was nothing else to say. In row 5, a teenage girl whispered to her mother, "Mom, he's really the owner?" Her mother nodded, smiling faintly. "Yes," and he didn't even raise his voice. Marcus heard her not with his ears, but with the weight of her words. That was the lesson he came for. He reached for the intercom one last time. The cabin hushed as his voice filled the air. "What happened here tonight isn't just about me. It's about what people assume when they see a black man sitting in a seat they don't expect. But progress doesn't come from shouting. It comes from standing, even when the world wants you to move." The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was slow, sincere, a ripple of respect. Nicole kept her head down. Brian wiped his eyes, muttering something that sounded like, "I'm sorry." Mia looked straight ahead, proud, unbroken. Marcus took one last look down the aisle, a row of witnesses turned believers. He placed his phone in his jacket pocket and whispered more to himself than to anyone else. Justice doesn't travel first class. It sits wherever it needs to. The engines hummed back to life. Outside, night lights shimmered across the tarmac like small reflections of redemption. And somewhere in that cabin, heavy with truth, lighter with dignity, everyone understood. The flight hadn't taken off, but something far greater had. The next 15 minutes moved in slow motion. The engines idled, humming like restrained thunder. The passengers had stopped whispering, not out of fear, but reverence. Something sacred had happened here. Truth had taken a seat among them. A ground crew supervisor boarded quietly through the front door, clipboard in hand. His badge gleamed under the cabin lights, Horizon Internal Operations. He scanned the room, already aware of the viral clip that had reached headquarters before he did. "Mr. Carter," he said respectfully, "the board's requested an immediate on-site statement. May I record?" Marcus nodded once. "Go ahead." The man raised his phone, but Marcus didn't look at it. His gaze stayed fixed on the front window, where night pressed against glass like a silent witness. "This is Marcus Carter," he began evenly. "I was denied the seat I paid for, profiled and humiliated by members of this crew. But this isn't about one flight. It's about a system that lets bias hide behind uniforms and policies. Tonight, that system met accountability." The supervisor paused the recording. "Sir, that was perfect." Marcus corrected him gently. "It wasn't perfect. It was necessary." Nicole shifted in her seat. She looked up at him, the arrogance gone, replaced by something raw, almost human. "Mr. Carter, I can't undo what I said, but I was wrong." Her voice cracked at the edges, the kind that comes when apology collides with shame. "I judged you before I saw you. I'm sorry." Marcus studied her for a long moment. He didn't smile, didn't soften, but his words carried something heavier than anger principle. "I accept your apology, but remember, this respect given only after exposure isn't respect. It's fear. Don't learn to fear people like me. Learn to see them." The line landed with quiet precision, cutting deeper than reprimand ever could. Even Brian, still leaning against the galley wall, nodded slowly, eyes glistening. Mia, seated near the jump seat, exhaled as if she'd been holding her breath for hours. The faintest smile crossed her lips. "Thank you for standing up," she whispered. Marcus looked at her. "You did too." Outside the cabin windows, airport lights blurred through a thin veil of mist, the world moving again. though none of them felt ready to. Rachel's voice came softly through his earpiece. Marcus, media outlets are already calling. The clip hit 1 million views in 20 minutes. He sighed, not with pride, but with gravity. Then let's make sure the message spreads wider than the drama. The supervisor nodded to the captain, signaling clearance for disembark. Marcus picked up his briefcase, turned toward the aisle, and gave one last look to the crew, not to gloat, but to remind them what leadership looked like when it didn't need to shout. Justice isn't about punishment, he said. It's about correction. And tonight, correction landed on time. And 7 formata Peter bother of Ben Tyans, and Annie Sense Starely average a brain. He walked out first, not escorted, not saluted, but followed by the quiet respect of every soul still seated. The cabin door hissed open. A wave of airport air drifted in cool, sterile, and strangely cleansing. The noise of the terminal felt distant, muffled, as if the world outside wasn't ready to interrupt what had just taken place inside. Marcus stepped out first. The jet bridge lights cast long silver lines across the floor, turning his shadow into something larger than life. Cameras were already waiting at the gate, phones held high. Reporters murmuring guesses, passengers from nearby gates craning their necks to see. But Marcus didn't rush. He walked with the same calm that had carried him through the storm. Behind him, Captain Daniel followed, head lowered not out of shame, but out of respect. 2 airport security officers stood by, unsure of what to do. Everything under control, sir? One asked softly. Marcus nodded. Yes. We're just landing a lesson. Rachel appeared at the end of the jet bridge, tablet in hand, heels clicking with executive precision. Marcus, she said quietly, corporate statement draft is ready. They're asking if you want to review it before release. I'll write my own, he replied. The terminal was half lit, late night quiet. A few passengers who'd been on the flight had already started uploading videos. Some were whispering into their phones. He didn't yell once. He's the owner. They grounded the flight for him. Marcus stopped near the window overlooking the tarmac. The aircraft still sat there, engines cooling, its reflection caught in the dark glass like a frozen confession. You see that? He said softly to Rachel. That's what happens when dignity finally gets airtime. Very on self and big at it as in mile of that Suze's plain wrong. Rachel smiled faintly, tapping her screen. Media will spin this 20 ways by morning. Then we'll give them one truth, he said. Horizon doesn't tolerate bias starting tonight. A man approached hesitantly, a passenger from row 3. Sir, I just wanted to say, thank you. My daughter saw everything. She'll remember how you handled it. Marcus extended his hand. Then it was worth every minute. He turned back toward the window. The plane lights blinked softly in the dark, like a heartbeat slowing to rest. The PA system crackled overhead with a calm, almost poetic announcement. Attention passengers, Flight 672 will remain grounded for maintenance and review. Please stand by for rebooking assistance. No one complained, not a single sigh or groan. Everyone in that terminal knew they'd witnessed something larger than a delay. Rachel handed him her tablet. You still want to fly tonight? No, he said, slipping his phone into his jacket. Some flights aren't meant to leave the ground. Some are meant to leave a mark. He started walking toward the lounge, the rhythm of his steps slow and deliberate. Behind him, the jet bridge door closed with a final hiss like a chapter sealing itself shut. And as Marcus disappeared down the quiet terminal hall, the whispers followed him not in mockery, not in gossip, but in awe. That's how power should move, someone said. Quiet, another replied. He just changed how this airline breathes. The clock read 11:47 p.m. Marcus sat alone in the VIP lounge, city lights flickering through the tall glass like quiet applause. The world outside was buzzing hashtags, headlines, debates, but inside, the air was still, controlled. Rachel placed a tablet before him. The press is waiting. Every outlet has the clip. Marcus scrolled once, then set it down. Let them wait. He stood, straightened his jacket, and faced the small row of cameras arranged by corporate communications. No podium, no branding, just truth. What happened tonight wasn't an incident, he began. It was a mirror. And sometimes, when a company looks into that mirror, it doesn't like what it sees. But growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confrontation. He paused. The silence carried more power than any applause could. Horizon Airlines will implement a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination effective immediately. Not because of who I am, but because of what's right. He closed his notes, eyes steady. And to every passenger who's ever been made to feel out of place, your seat was always yours. They just didn't see you yet. Flashbulbs sparked like lightning, but Marcus didn't flinch. He gave a single nod, then turned away from the cameras. Rachel whispered, "That'll play on every network by sunrise." "Good," Marcus said. "Let the sunrise mean something this time." He walked past the cameras, past the noise, and into the quiet corridor that led out of the terminal, each step measured, like justice walking home. The clock read 11:47 p.m. Marcus sat alone in the VIP lounge, city lights flickering through the tall glass like quiet applause. The world outside was buzzing hashtags, headlines, debates, but inside, the air was still, controlled. Rachel placed a tablet before him. "The press is waiting. Every outlet has the clip." Marcus scrolled once, then set it down. "Let them wait." He stood, straightened his jacket, and faced the small row of cameras arranged by corporate communications. No podium, no branding, just truth. "What happened tonight wasn't an incident," he began. "It was a mirror. And sometimes when a company looks into that mirror, it doesn't like what it sees. But growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confrontation." He paused. The silence carried more power than any applause could. Horizon Airlines will implement a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, effective immediately. Not because of who I am, but because of what's right. He closed his notes, eyes steady. "And to every passenger who's ever been made to feel out of place, your seat was always yours. They just didn't see you yet." Flashbulbs sparked like lightning, but Marcus didn't flinch. He gave a single nod, then turned away from the cameras. Rachel whispered, "That'll play on every network by sunrise." "Good," Marcus said. "Let the sunrise mean something this time." Things are watching. He walked past the cameras, past the noise, and into the quiet corridor that led out of the terminal, each step measured, like justice walking home. The crew who humiliated him that night were quietly escorted into Horizon's corporate offices. No shouting, no dramatics, just accountability. Their access badges buzzed red. Every system, every privilege, frozen. Nicole stood in stunned silence. Brian leaned against the wall, shaking his head. I didn't know." "You should have," Marcus said, voice calm but unyielding. "Knowing doesn't excuse complicity." Mia, the trainee, watched from the sidelines. Relief softened her tension. "I thought I was just one person," she whispered. Marcus smiled faintly. "One person can make the system visible. One voice can tip the scales." Outside, passengers from that flight posted videos and reactions. Every like, every share, every comment echoed the same lesson. Dignity doesn't need to shout. It only needs to stand firm. Marcus walked past the suspended staff, untouched by anger. "This isn't revenge," he said softly. "It's correction. And it will last longer than resentment ever could." The hallway fell silent. Even the hum of the building seemed to pause. Respect, finally recognized. The sun rose over the Horizon Airlines headquarters, casting long golden streaks across glass and steel. Marcus Carter stood on the balcony, arms folded, watching planes taxi below. Each one now carried a little more accountability than the day before. Rachel appeared beside him, tablet in hand. "The board approved all reforms. Passengers are notified. Media is amplifying your statement worldwide." Marcus nodded slowly. "Good. Justice doesn't need applause. It needs permanence." "It is wanting." A soft breeze ruffled his jacket. The memory of that torn ticket, of the public humiliation, lingered not as anger, but as fuel. He turned back inside, passing through corridors filled with staff already learning the lesson. No theatrics, no shouting, just quiet correction. "Dignity doesn't beg," he murmured, "and authority doesn't demand noise. It simply stands." From the terminal windows, jets soared into the morning sky. Marcus watched them, knowing some flights would always carry more than passengers. They'd carry the weight of respect, fairness, and change. And for the first time that day, everything felt exactly as it should.